Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah amma ba'd. The brothers sisters, I had reviewed before in a small video the main books of Muhammad Salih al-Munajjid in English and Sheikh Jamal Zarabozo, and I said I will do as well the books of Sheikh Bilal Philips, because they had a great influence not only on myself but as well on the overall Muslim, not in the late 90s and as well up to now. There's many brothers, mashallah, they find guidance through the books of Dr. Bilal Philips or through his lectures. So mashallah, alhamdulillah, I have almost all his books, and I just wanted to review them quickly so people have an idea on them and which one they need to buy for which topic. So first of all, Sheikh Bilal Philips, we all know, mashallah, he's a convert to Islam who then studied in Medina University, but he's one of, we can say in the West, he's one of the most successful scholar and da'i, because of what I believe, because of his sincerity to Allah. Other groups, they went to extreme views in declaring other Sunni Muslims to be heretics and innovators. But alhamdulillah, Sheikh Bilal Philips, he always kept a well-balanced view, and in this way he's a role model for many of the youth in keeping well-balanced and unity between Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And as well, mashallah, he seems to be, mashallah, very mukhlis, sincere scholar and student of knowledge. And this is why the reason he is the most successful Medina University student. His online university has 100,000 followers. Some people, they say even more, to which around the world he provides free Islamic education and degree online. They only have to pay the fee for the exams. In a video a few years ago, he went to meet Sheikh Abdurrahman Abdul Khaliq, and he explained his works in Africa and how in many countries people didn't have African enough universities, and he would give them even in other countries, free Islamic education, and it was recognized. Now it is getting more recognized by many other countries, the degrees his Islamic online university provides. So this is all a result, mashallah, of his sidq and his sincerity and his da'wah for Allah's sake, without being extreme in the issues of takfir and tabdi' and breaking the communities, dividing husband and wife between two brothers, declaring people innovators unjustly. So mashallah, he's been very successful. First, when he was attacked first, he wrote a reply to some extreme groups. But after he saw there was no point, because they will always find excuses to attack. So it's just a waste of time. Many scholars said, instead of wasting time, to always reply to these people. Once you've clarified your issues and your point of view, you don't need to, else you can't do the work in your communities, in your masajid, in your teaching, in your writings. Bilal Philips, he wouldn't be able to do his online university and all his writings if he was to refute and keep the youth busy in refutation. So alhamdulillah, obviously refutations are needed, and Bilal Philips in his videos, he refuted by many of the extreme innovators, the Sufi Disha. We're going to see this through these books, but he has not been involved in the dispute of scholars which we witness online. People used to be friends, and after they say he's most dangerous people in the Ummah. Well, they had 30 years of friendship. Before they used to say whoever criticizes him is not Salafi, and after they say he's the worst person in the Ummah, most dangerous, and this and that. So we have all witnessed this since the end of the 90s. Unfortunately, many of the scholars, even Sheikh Adnan Urur, when he was attacked in the late 90s, he said to refer to scholars, to his opponents, but they always refused. And this was not only said by him, but by other scholars as well. So he said, if you have a difference with me, let's refer to Sheikh Ibn Baz or Sheikh Albani, but his opponents always refused. So now we're going to start with the books of Sheikh Bilal Philips. And first of all, we can see that Sheikh Bilal Philips, he has a diverse type of writings. In Aqidah, in Tafseer, in Fiqh Usul al-Fiqh, against sects, against on black magic, and about Raqaiq. So all these elements, they are very important. Okay, Tawheed is the most important without any doubt. But the problem now we see nowadays is many of the people, they will they will neglect the other parts of Islam, building on Islamic sciences, building on Raqaiq spirituality, and building on da'wah to non-Muslims. So this is an issue which we have to think about it as well. Tafsir of the Quran, Dr. Bilal Phillips has 3 books on it. You know, his devotion to the Holy Quran. I have written, Sheikh Abdul Rashid Iraqi has written a book on the khidmat of the early Hadith scholars in India, and I've written an article on it, which contains the efforts of the early Hadith scholars, not only in India, Pakistan, but those in UK as well. And I mentioned some of our shuyukh in England and their efforts in tafsir. So the tafsir of the Quran, the early Hadith scholars have always linked the youth and the layman to the tafsir of the Quran. This has been one of the main concern. So this knowledge has never been neglected by our scholars, and likewise our next generation, they need to focus a lot on reading and focusing and studying the Quran and its tafsir. So and many other issues, societal issues, doubts about atheism, all these modern doubts, they all need to be treated. Psychological issues, marriage breakups, all these social issues and other issues, they all need to be addressed as well with Tawheed. Tawheed, it is the main goal of Islam. But the problem is, some nations before us, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blamed them that they had knowledge, but they were like donkeys carrying book. So they had knowledge, and even nowadays, if you look some of the videos, they will say we're up on Tawheed. They will blame the Christians. You are polytheists. You are, you know, there's many online videos of them. They will say we are the people of Tawheed. The other people, the Christians, they will debate Christians, these nations, and they will say we are the pure monotheist. Okay, so they always will lecture about monotheism and about they will insist on the Islamic rulings, fiqh. But what misguided them is their arrogance and their pride. So they refused some of the prophets and they killed them by injustice. So it was not out of lack of knowledge. You know, the Quran says they knew the Prophet ﷺ clearly in the Quran. You know, they knew them more than the fathers and children. So they had knowledge of the truth of many prophets, but they killed them out of arrogance and pride. So with the knowledge of Tawheed, which is essential, we have to work on this issue of fighting pride, arrogance, which is a minor form of shirk as well, and all these issues of which affect spirituality. Because unfortunately, many have seen that some people who had good creed, they left the fold of Islam because they had to face issues in their life, problems, and they were not mentally ready. They're always ready to refute innovators, but they did not have the spiritual mawad, substance, strength. So when they faced very hardcore problems, some of them left the fold of Islam, and this has been witnessed in Birmingham, in our cities. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us guided all the time, to have the correct creed, to reform and this is why Bilal Phillips, he not only refuted sects and those who insult the Sahaba, the Sufi sects, those who do shirk and bid'ah, and we will mention them. And at the same time, he focused on established Islamic sciences, strong Islamic societies, brotherhood, and all the other factors, focusing on the tafsir of the Quran, all the other aspects of Islamic sciences that are essential to the well-being of the human being. So first of all, we will start with his Kitab al-Tawheed. So this book, I don't know how many, maybe hundreds of thousands of Muslims benefited from it, because it was written at the date Dr. Bilal Phillips mentioned in 1982 from his notes in Medina University in Saudi Arabia on Kitab Tawheed. So in a well-explained English, he explains all the shirk, invoking other than Allah, shirk at graves, sacrifices at graves, the horoscope, the bad omens, and all other forms of shirk in a very astrology, and all black magic and all other issues in a easy English, and it was one of the first book in the 80s, which appear in English language, and which was written by an original, because before they used to have some people who were Arabs, then they learn English, so their English is not the same stylistic English as Dr. Bilal Phillips or Sheikh Jamal Zarabozo, whose first language is English. So the style and the beauty of the writing will not be the same. It's like someone who learns Urdu, his Urdu will never be the same as someone who has grown up in India, Pakistan, and who has read poetry and he can write. The style of writing will not be the same. So this book had a great influence, mashallah, on the Ummah, and it has been spread. I don't know in how many countries it has been translated into French. Alhamdulillah, I had the French translation as well. It has been translated maybe in 30 languages, and it's in Urdu as well. It is translated into Urdu as well, and it is a very beneficial book which all Muslim household should have. So after when we said Tawheed, he also wrote specific books against the misguidance of different sects. So this one, it is Talbis Iblis of Abdurrahman Ibn Jawzi, Hanbali, the great scholar, and in it basically he refused the Qaramita and the and some extreme Sufis and the Shia. And obviously he starts with the Khawarij, and then he goes in detail about the different Ismaili sects, the Qaramita, and it is a very beneficial book, just 70 pages, but it gives a glimpse of all these main sects, many of them who left the fold out of Islam, and he gave the scholars fatwa of them, and the Qaramita and all these people, all the different sects, the Batiniya, the Ismailiya. So this is Talbis Iblis has, in few years ago, it has been fully translated by Dar Sunnah, which I also recommend. It's a very, but it's a very big book. So if someone has, because obviously some people are busy in their studies, some in their works, and some in their businesses. So obviously if you're not a good reader, the summary of Bilal Phillips will be very beneficial for you. And he has written many notes to it, and many beneficial notes of history. So it gives you a good background. On the Shia now, the Zaydiyah, and all the other Islamic history. So if you want just a quick read, you're not a big reader, you can't complete big books. So the other Talbis Iblis, the Devil's Deception by Dar Sunnah, might not be, it might be too much for you. So this 70 pages will give you a good glimpse of these sects. So we can see Bilal Phillips, alhamdulillah, he devoted lots of time to these sects. And even if you have the big one, I will advise you to have the little one, just for the sake of the notes of Dr. Bilal Phillips, who are very beneficial. So his book, Dr. Bilal Phillips translated this book, The Miraj in Iran, of Dr. Ahmad al-Afghani. So likewise, it was one of the first books written. Obviously, his books came as well in the 80s and were translated into English. But this book as well were very beneficial, because the problem is not lots of people in the 80s, lots of Islamic movements, when they were seeing what happened in Iran and they were applying some aspects of the Islamic law, they were very excited and opening the welcoming Khomeini. But the problem is, and like Maulana Maududi in Pakistan, but the problem is they did not realize the danger of Khomeini, who was not, he was upon clear kufr and shirk and hatred of the Sahaba. He was an extreme one. So in this book, even it is mentioned that, when they say, the big Islamic leaders have praised Khomeini. So he mentioned that at the end, Dr. Ahmad al-Afghani, he mentioned that whatever they have written, Maulana Maududi, he introduced some books clearly calling the shirk in the books of the Shia. So you have to understand that even Maulana Maududi, though he might have some leanings and praised of Iran, he also in some of his books and some of the books he introduced, denounced their belief. So it is a well-balanced books who gives you a perspective, and it's a call to these Islamic movements, Jamaat Islami, not to lean towards the Shia because of their shirk and bid'ah. So it is an excellent book calling these groups, and it shows them their reality. So it is very beneficial. Unfortunately, it is not published recently. You can find PDFs online, but it is a very beneficial book translated by Dr. Bilal Phillips, and I hope in 85, you see, so at the peak of the Dawah of the Shia, so it was a very important book which showed the reality of the writings of Khomeini. Okay, so it says here on page 51, the great scholar, speaking about Maulana Maududi, that Maulana Maududi introduced a book published in 1977 written by Muhammad Kazim Habib, and Ar-Ridda Bain al-Ams wal-Yawm, okay, and the author Muhammad Khadim Habibi writes, in spite of their moderate views, meaning or compared to other Shiism, they are swimming in disbelief like with blood cells in blood or like fish in water. So Maulana Maududi supported this view by praising the author and recommending the book to be done in hardback. So this is one example that that is appealing to the Islamic leaders, that in some of their writings they condemn the shirk and the disbelief present in the Jafari Imams. So it is an excellent book which was really needed at the time, and I hope it gets published again. So this is for the sects. Some of them have a shirk. Bilal Phillips, he also has two books which are very important books because they deal about sects in America, because they're the Ansar cult in America, which is 198 page about a cult like the Nation of Islam, of people in America who claim to be prophets after the Prophet ﷺ. And so it is a refutation of this sect. So it is a very important research which is good to keep when dealing with different groups who have left Islam. It is good to keep these books, and when you need to research them, then you can have a look. If you're dealing with their people, obviously maybe in UK you will say I'm not dealing with them, but in America if you're dealing, or you have to in your Islamic work have some knowledge, so you can always refer to this book. And another book about against the submiters, you know, they came a lot in the 80s that the number 19 is repeated a lot, many verses and letters, there are multiples of the number 19 of Rashad Khalifa. So unfortunately even Sheikh Ahmed Didat used this research, but after when Rashad Khalifa, he has even done a translation of the Quran, he apostated from Islam and made his own group submiters and claimed to be a prophet. So this is a book I gave them, and unfortunately it's one of the few written in English. It was printed in Saudi Arabia, and unfortunately we can't find it now, but it's a very important book because it just shows the numerical hoax in it, and in his research how many data he has put wrong data, how many letters, you know, he even cheated in the data. So even his number 19 is not true. Sometimes he counted some letters, sometimes he didn't count some was. So you know, it all shows that he just did things to suit his theory, and he rejected even some verses in the Quran that said, look, they don't fit my number 19. So it's a small book, but it needs 65 pages, but it needs to be reprinted and be present. Obviously we can find PDFs, but it needs to be printed again. So after his books on Tawheed and refutation of sects and apostate groups, obviously his PhD was on black magic, which is obviously major shirk, the exorcist tradition in Islam. 356 books. This was his PhD. He interviewed many people around the country, and he compared the Islamic tradition of exorcism to others, and he also refuted the modernist movement who denies jinn possession and calls them microbes. And unfortunately, great Salafi scholar Sheikh Muhammad Rashid Rida, he fell for such views. But it is an excellent book which will explain how magic works and how proper exorcism should be done, and not the fraudster's way. And he will condemn as well those who use black magic. And he has another book on this topic, Ibn Taymiyyah's Essays on the Jinn, which is a very, very good book, because it will speak about the karamat and the tricks of the magicians using jinns. So some Sufi sects like Ibn Taymiyyah confronted them, verified they used to stab themselves, walk on fire. Some of them obviously use tricks, but some of them use jinns, to do things. And when Ibn Taymiyyah will recite Ayatul Kursi, they will fall down, and all the other things, they will disappear. So it's an excellent book which will speak how the jinn sometimes he will appear to Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, claiming that he does not need worship, and how he will fool many of the Sufis, misguided Sufis who lack knowledge of the Sharia. So it is an excellent book which speaks about, and he has a lengthy note on it. So it was one of the first one as well written on this topic, and it is in 1988, and it's a very important topic, and we can't repeat the importance of this topic, because as we know, in Pakistan, India, all this, even in London, there are even advertisements that this Baba can, Bengali or other Pakistani Baba, they can solve your problems, and the marriage problem, your exam problems. And when we open this ta'weez and amulets, we see shirk written in them, things written with blood. So this shirk is apparent, it's on TV, it's in newspaper. So this is a very important topic. So after we're going to see, like I said, the Tafseer of the Quran. This is a very important topic to which all our scholars, they had Tafseer of the Quran. Hafiz Muhammad Gondelvi, just Tafsir Surah Fatiha, he spent 10 months to teach it. So all our scholars, they have either writings or they had lessons in the Masjid of Tawheed, and this was one of their main focus, because it contains everything. It contains Aqidah, Akhlaq, it contains history, it contains lessons, moral, fiqh. It contains all different aspects of the human life, the Islamic system, the social justice in Islam. So all the aspects of Islam are covered within the Quran. The Sirah is mentioned in it, all the main events in the Prophet's life. So so the Quran is something we should always devote to. And Bilal Phillips, his Tafsir Surah Hujurat, it was published in 1990, and at that time, like I said, there were very few English translated book, and his book has received many praises and around the world in the Muslim newspaper, Tafsir Surah Hujurat. And in it, he always focuses a lot on ittiba, that do not raise your voice. Have was the voice of the Prophet ﷺ. Sheikh Bilal Phillips, like the Alul Hadith, Sheikh Albani, he always focuses on acting upon Hadith, and he speaks about not being fanatical towards a madhab or a scholar. We love the scholar, the imams, not only the four, the others as well. Lays ibn Sa'ad, Imam al-Awda'i, Imam Sufyan al-Thawri. We love all the A'imma Kiram, but we don't do taqlid of them. Obviously, our scholars studied books of fiqh in the madaris. They always studied books of madhahib. So we don't forbid people to study books of madhahib, but we don't want the ta'assub attached to it, that the people will curse each other, the mazahib, they would not pray behind each other. They will say the main Hanafi book is makruh to pray behind the Shafi'i, and likewise in the Shafi'i, and this fight, sometimes it went to physical fights. People used to burn each other's house, people used to, there have been lots of injustice in the Islamic history between these mazahib. So whenever one will come in power, he will try to get the other scholars kicked out and not teaching them, and all this hatred and hizbiyah. This is a main issue which divided Ummah. So in it, in Tafsir Surah Hujurat, he emphasizes as well with the spiritual aspect, with the love of the Sahaba, love of the Prophet. He also in fact focuses on this aspect of ittiba, which is very dear to Ahl Hadith. So his tafsir of Surah Al-Mulk, which as well is a must-have book, I would recommend it. And even in this book, because knowledge of the tafsir, it contains everything. It contains Tawheed, Aqidah, refutations. You know, so once you study tafsir, you will do refutations within it, because first will refute a particular modernist group, Aqlani group, Mu'tazili group. It will refute the Murji group, the Khariji group, the Qadari group. Some verses pertaining to destiny will refute the Jabariya. Some will refute the Qadariya. Some will refute the Shia. Some will refute also all the verses on the Quran. Is very important. So in it as well, on page 193, he speaks about the numerology found in the Greek books, the Babylonian, the Kabbalah, the Ishtar, and all these things. And he will speak about some English book, even translated in English, Prophetical Medical Medicine. And in part 2, he will mention the Aina Amaliyat Sufi Muhammad Azizur Rahman Sahib Panipati. And he said the part 3 of this book is Naqsh Suleimani of Khwaja Ashraf Ali Lakhnavi. So instead, in this part 2, this book which was published in India in English, it has 3 parts. So the second part is Aina Maliyat of Sufi Azizur Rahman Sahib, and the third one is Naqsh Suleimani of Khwaja Ashraf. So in the second part, he will mention some ruling about how to increase love between two people, and there's a chart you can see with the numbers. Okay, so the following nash is based on the following ayat: yuhibbunahum kahubbillah walladhina amanu ashaddu hubban lillah. And after you have to write this chart, and below you have to write al-hub fulan ibn fulan ala hub fulan ibn fulan. The woman who keeps this chart, Naqsh, with her shall be exceedingly loved by her husband, and whoever looks at her will deeply love her. So this is not only her husband will love her, but other people will love her. So this is a numerological thing which has no basic in the Quran and Hadith, and which is following the other people, the Kabbalah style. And then he wants to mention another book afterwards, the book Ahmal al-Quran, written by Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanvi, which is translated into English. And he mentioned some of the issues in it, all these numbers and others. He said, for instance, the following surah is written on the right rib of the woman in the offing of pregnancy, and she will give birth to so and so. So, and he he will give many other remedies, which numbers which are not proven from the Quran and the Sunnah. So we have to avoid us. Obviously, the scholars, they said we can use experience. Like some Sahaba, they use to Surat Fatiha without knowing from the Prophet. So you can use verses of the Quran and try them, and if they work on some issues, this can be used, but not these numbers. They have no precedent. None of the Sahaba used numbers and these amulets and others. So this is an excellent book. Not only you learn tafsir, but as well it will contain refutations in it. Not only you will learn spirituality, but you will also get a refutation. Likewise, with this one is smaller, Tafsir Surah Al-Buruj, but it's an excellent writing, and all the lessons and morals contained in this story. Obviously there's the incident of magic and the boy and the king. I mean, it is a very good event. So afterwards, Bilal Phillips, he has also written books about da'wah to non-Muslims. Like his book is written towards understanding Islam, which is a brief presentation of Islam. It came from one of his lecture in 1992. So towards understanding Islam, it has been then published with another name. So it's a good presentation of Islam. So these two books, The Purpose of Creation, is an excellent book to atheists and as introduction to Islam. So for people to know what Islam means. His book as well, The True Message of Jesus Christ, which is a small book, 95 pages, and it's a good gift to Christians, because if you give them I have many other books which are very, The True Message of Jesus Christ, it's like 600-700 pages. Unless you're a priest or you're doing studies in these topics, layman, he needs a 90 pages book to know the true message of Isa and what the Muslim believe about Prophet Isa alayhi salam. So this is a good book written to da'wah to the non-Muslim, and this aspect it has been focused a lot by the Ahl Hadith scholars, da'wah to the Hindus, books written against them, da'wah to the Christian. One of my friend Canada now, he's going to print a book of Sheikh Sanal Amr Sari in refutation to a Christian priest who said Islam is not a natural religion, it's not a global religion, and he refuted this Christian priest that Alamgir, the global religion is the religion of Islam, is the religion of Fitra, the natural disposition, and it is the best religion. So inshallah, this has always been important. The clash of civilization, he mentioned in different Islamic groups, the Ansar Sunnah Muhammadiyah, the Ahl Hadith, Sunnah in it, and it shows and it refutes as well the militant groups, those Jamaat Takfir, in Egypt, and all the other groups. Jamaat Takfir who went to militancies and killing and bombings, and so he condemns them as well. Unfortunately, this is found in some of our youth who resort to terrorism and joining extreme groups, which all our scholars have condemned. So it is an excellent book which shows to the non-Muslims that we have nothing to do basically with all these killings and these extreme views, and this is not the views of the scholars, and there's no clash of civilization like the propaganda of the media want to say that Muslims wants to kill us, na'uzubillah. This is all false, and he has, it's a book, a dawah group dawah book written. So I will go quickly on the on his books on fiqh, because in fiqh, while Dr. Bilal Phillips focuses on a lot on acting upon hadith, upon the way of Ahlul Hadith. So this is why his books of fiqh and usul al-fiqh are always beneficial books. So obviously I will mention them quickly. Al-Hajj al-Umrah, I mean, it's not published, it has published in Indonesia, because obviously after there's so many big books written by different on this topic. So obviously is like Ismail David, so obviously maybe there's no need. This one is smaller, so people will go to bigger ones when they do Hajj. Polygamy in Islam, which he has written with Jamila Jones, so it is a good explanation for people who have objections against it. So it will show that it is not an unjust system, and it existed in other religions. So this is a good book of fiqh. Islamic Rules on Menstruation and Postnatal Bleeding, which is an excellent book as well. And as well, he will quote some of the other views like Hafiz ibn Hazm and others. Imam Bukhari, that whether woman in state of menses can touch or recite the Quran. So it is a good book on this issue. Funeral Rites of Islam, which is like a summary of Sheikh Nasiruddin Albani's Ahkam al-Janaiz, which is a good book as well, 152 pages. So this one is a small one. The one of Dr. Muhammad Jibali, which is as well summary of Ahkam al-Janaiz, is longer. So obviously if you want to go more in depth, Muhammad Jibali's book will be better. If you want to have a quick read and know the basic rulings without knowing all the differences or Wiki Hadith and all the I mean, this book mentions as well some of the innovations in Wiki Hadith, but if you want, like I said, some people, they don't have the time. So this one will be a basic book about if you have to go to Jannah. I mean, we all go to Jannah to friends and relatives, so the basic etiquettes and rulings. So this one is a very important book as well, which with Kitab Tawhid, everyone must have this one. It goes in the evolution of the mazahib, all the four imams, and he mentions all after the first phases, the second phases, and then after the blind following, how people forbade ijtihad, how people forbade leaving the opinion of an imam. They call the one who leaves the mazhab as a fasiq, he should have 10 lashes and other issues. And he will mention the Islamic different groups and those who focused on blind following, those who didn't. So obviously he will praise the Ahl Hadith, he will praise other scholars, the reforming scholars, mashallah, like Sheikh Muhammad Rashid Rida and others, who were against taqleed. So Alhamdulillah, it is a Muhammad Ali Shawkani, and how Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he went as well. I guess he had hundreds of opinions outside the four schools of thought. Some books have been written in Arabic on this issue, that the opinions Shaykh al-Islam has taken outside the four school, but obviously other Sahaba Tabi'in and other Imams had taken these views. So this is a very good book which goes over the history of Mazahib, the principles of the different Imams, how these schools were created, not only the four but the others as well. So it is a very important book on ittiba and understanding the differences of scholars and how the layman should behave. Obviously, like I said, the Ahli Hadith, we study books of fiqh of Mazahib, we benefit from them. This is what Shaykh Ismail Salafi said, we benefit from them, but we don't just particularly follow one. Obviously, Saudi scholars, they have a different view that first you should learn one, after learn comparative fiqh. But our way, which is as well focused by many other scholars of Sham and Egypt, is to study comparative fiqh. Benefit from the scholar teachings of the Imam. Take the opinion which convinces you, whether it's the opinion of Imam Shafi, whether it's the opinion of Imam Ahmad, whether it's the opinion of Imam Malik, or even the opinions of Imam Abu Hanifa. Many Ahlul Hadith, on many issues, they take the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa as well, and other Imam as well outside these fours. So this is a good book. So obviously he has two other books, Usul Tafseer, which obviously it goes through. It is a good book, 342 pages, which will explain the history of the compilation of the Quran and all the ulum al-Quran, nasikh al-mansukh, and all these issues pertaining to the science of the Quran, and it will mention the main tafsir of the Quran, the old ones, the new ones, and it always shows Dr. Bilal Phillips' well-balanced view that he will praise some modern tafsir like Tafsir Maraghi. Those, they have some issues, but they have some beneficial points as well. So it always shows. Obviously, after Dr. Yasir Qazi's book, which is more detailed, and Dr. Yasir Qazi speaks about issues of Aqidah, like the Asharis, and they're saying the words of the Quran are not created. So obviously, Dr. Bilal Phillips won't deal in detail about. Obviously, he will mention the good tafsir, the Sunni tafsir, Tafsir Biraj, the Sufi tafsir, and he will as well mention some of the English translated tafsir and some of the problems. So some of the English translations. So it is a good book, but it won't go in detail about the Asharis and more in detail about how the different. It will mention the Qira'ah and the Ahruf, the different modes of reading. But obviously, Dr. Yasir Qazi will go more in detail. So obviously, if you want, if you don't have time to read big books, so obviously I recommend you this one. If you have time to go more in depth, then obviously Dr. Yasir Qazi's book will go more in depth. Usul al-Hadith, which is again an excellent book. There's Dr. Suhaib Hassan's one as well, which is smaller, so if you have less time you can read Dr. Suhaib Hassan's. If you want to, if you have more time, this one is 446 pages, so it will go through the main books of Mustalah al-Hadith and give the English reader an understanding of the different ways of Hadith. So these are the books of Dr. Bilal Phillips. I will just finish by a few of the raqaiq. Like I said, spirituality, it is a very important issue. Hafiz ibn al-Qayyim, he wrote an explanation of the book of Abu Ismail Ansari al-Harawi, who was an Afghani Hanbali scholar. And it was a book of spirituality. The different state of the believers, about the fear of Allah, the hope to Allah, the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Hafiz ibn al-Qayyim, he wrote a lengthy explanation of this book, Madarij Salikin, explanation of Manazil Sa'irin. So this is Hanbali scholars, they always have written, not the Hanbali, the old scholars, school of Ahli Hadith, they have written books about the moral character, the spirituality. So obviously there's a dream interpretation one. This is more related to fiqh. But obviously there's a book of Muhammad Jibali as well. So this one is smaller, but it's not, you can't find it now. There's maybe the other one came, this one was not reprinted. So this one is like shorter. If you want to go lengthier in the dream interpretation, the books of Muhammad Jibali's, are always available. So he has his book on salvation through repentance, which shows that in Islam, contrary to others, how you have to repent compared to other religion. And he has a video about it, but it compares basically the Islamic concept of repentance in compared to the Christian way, and this Islamic way is the best. So this book, The Best in Islam, which is a collection of hadiths, mentioning the best, the wording the best. So it will go the best of you are those who live the long and are the best in character. The best of you are those who live in the longest and best in deeds. So it is those coming with the best of the gathering as the most spacious, the best of people in our my generation, those. So it gathers all the hadiths with the wording the best. And I will finish with this one, an essay of the heart, a commentary of Ibn Taymiyyah's essay on the heart. So it is a section of Majmu Fatawa. It is not like the book Disease of the Heart done by Dar Sunnah. So it's a separate section of Ibn Taymiyyah. And Dr. Bilal Phillips explains it. So the right of the heart, and how to keep your heart always in the remembrance of Allah, so you don't have all these diseases of envy, jealousy with your da'i going more forward, having more followers, having more students, having this is a basic need to fix our communities. An essay of the heart, a must read, and as well just to understand these issues that affecting the Muslim Ummah. Each human being has always desires of power and being leaders of the communities, having his name on posters, but this is just to put your sincerity for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not have all these diseases, and always be longing. Try to work for Allah's sake. Try to do your best. Obviously, alhamdulillah, if your name gets on poster, this is a reward. If your name gets mentioned, but this is not something you should desire, or it's not something you should try to be jealous of other speakers and then try to find faults in them, which you won't find maybe in your friends. Maybe you will criticize a da'i because he's interviewing your sisters. Maybe your friend in America is doing this. I mean, you're not criticizing him, you're criticizing someone you have. You should purify your heart for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not dwell in these do things sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not because you have rivalry or you have personal issues with some people and you want to just attack them cheaply, throwing cheap shots. So we should always, this is a very important issue, the issue of spirituality, which sadly is neglected by many in the West. These issues of connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is what I will finish with this, and we can see in the summary of books of Dr. Bilal Phillips that there are all types of focus on Tawheed Aqidah, focus on Tafseer, focus on the knowledge of fiqh, to focus on spirituality, focus on reforming the society, and all these issues. So obviously he has other books which I don't have or are out of publication, but this is just to show that for the next generation how to be productive, Muslims, productive Ahli Hadith, try ta'miri people, try to build societies, try to build welfare associations, try to publish books, try like Bilal Phillips to have an online universities, which Allah gave him so much, mashallah, and may Allah give all students of knowledge the same success as Dr. Bilal Phillips. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka hamidun majid.